Hello, 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 hello. Hello, hello. Hey, Aji. Hello, hello, hello. You guys come on in here. Come on in here. Once you're in here, hit that share button or tag someone and let them know that we are live. Uh-oh. Let them know that we are live. Happy Wednesday. It is the hump day. And I know people like, oh, we got 2 more days to the weekend. Well, we got 2 more days to the weekend. But let's also take this opportunity to just enjoy that today is Wednesday. So happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. Again, once you are in here, hit that share button. Let us know who you are, where you're from, that you're joining us. Let me get my comments open here. I think that we're all set and ready to go. So, y'all know that when I come on, that I'm gonna be transparent. I know no other way to be. Like I said that yesterday, and yeah, we're gonna continue that today. So let me introduce. Let me stop and introduce who I am because I always forget that. Like I forget to stop. Everybody don't know who I am, even though my names may be on my profiles and all that stuff. People may not know who I am. So let me stop and introduce myself to you. My name is Dr. Tiffany. I am a trained marriage and family therapist, and I am a relationship expert. In our coaching business, I own a coaching and consulting firm. But more particularly in our coaching business, we work with women who are healing and recovering from traumatic relationships. So, our topic of generational trauma. Today we're talking about childhood sexual abuse. All of those are things that we see, or I've seen with my clients when I'm working with them. So no better time to talk about these issues than now. And after we talk about this, you'll see why we need to talk about this because these things are going on, and oftentimes they're going on up under our nose. And so if we know what to look for, then we'll know how to stop the cycle. That's what generational trauma is all about, is someone being able to rise up out of that family system or out of that generation and say the cycle did not start with me. It didn't start with me. These behaviors, these things that we're seeing, it didn't start with me, but it does end with me. And all it takes is just one person to begin to change the trajectory of the whole family line. I'm a systems thinker, so I believe that a change with one person or a change with one individual or one change can absolutely impact multiple parts of that person's system. And so I really believe that it only takes one person to rise up. Just one. And I pray that if you're watching me, that you are that one person that have chosen to rise up and be the pioneer in your family to begin to break off some of the cycles, these generational cycles that you are seeing in your family. Thank you so much for sharing. For those who have shared, I'm getting notifications that those of you have shared. I appreciate it so much. Make sure if you're in here, if you have not shared, hit that share, and we're going to get started. So, what exactly is generational trauma? We started off talking about that yesterday. What exactly is generational trauma? Generational trauma is just trauma that has been passed down from one generation to the next. And so we see specific behaviors that arrive out of that. And we talked about some of that today. I'm going to only give just a brief overview of generational trauma because we have a lot of stuff that I want to talk about today. And I'm going to be honest, we may not get to some of it because this stuff can get really deep. So we may not get to some of it in the 15 or 20 minutes. So if we don't, we'll just pick back up tomorrow. But go back and watch yesterday when we talked a little bit more details about what generational trauma looks like and what some of the symptoms are. And and govern yourselves accordingly. I gave some awesome tips, so go back and watch that from yesterday. So another thing that we learned about generational trauma, and I need to say this because it kind of sets some foundation of where we're going today. Some other things that we learned about generational trauma on yesterday is that generational trauma not only alters our perception of ourselves, our perception of the world, our perception of others. You'll hear me say that over and over and over again because I want you to really get that in you. Like the generational trauma or trauma in general alters your perception of yourself, others, and the world. So not only did we learn that it does that, the trauma does that, it alters those three things. We also know that with generational trauma, that it alters our genetics. Now, what do you mean? Like, this can get kind of deep. I told y'all you can get. Now, I'm a PhD, not an MD, not an MD. So I'm going to give you the research. And a lot of this you can go through and find the research yourself and read up on it, talk to your doctors, talk to some of those that are in biological sciences. And Dr. Monica, if she's here, I know she said she was joining live. She's been a faithful supporter. She's a doctor and she can help explain this. But I'm going to give you the definition. So it alters us genetically or our genetic processes. And what our genetic processes are, according to the definition, is biological processes that are involved in the transmission of hereditary traits from one organism to another. What does that mean, Dr. Tiffany? Like, what is all of that jumper jab? What does that stuff mean? It literally means that you get stuff from your mama that in your genes, and you get stuff from your daddy in your genes, and it literally comes together and makes who you are. So if trauma is passed down in your family side and passed down on your mother's side, that means that genetically there's some things going on in your body that has been passed down from your family. That's what genetic processes mean. Hey. So what else do we know about generational trauma? Now, I have to be completely honest here and completely transparent. I don't believe that we're just physical beings. I also believe that we're spiritual beings. So if generational trauma alters our physical selves, our physical makeup, we know this because genetics is our physical makeup. Like our genes is literally our physical and biological makeup, right? So we know it alters our perceptions, which that includes our morals, our values, our behaviors, how we think, our perception. Like it alters that. It alters our genetic makeup or our biological processes. It alters that. We also know that we're also spiritual beings. So it also alters us spiritually. What does that have to do with childhood sexual behavior or childhood sexual trauma or sexual abuse? We'll get there. So let's talk about childhood sexual abuse. Now, I think I've shared several times that I am a 4-time sexual abuse survivor, and I say that proudly, not because it happened, but because I can get to say that I am a survivor. So now I have control over my story, or I have power, or have taken back my voice that was lost or had been lost and taken away in those situations. So I call myself a 4-time sexual abuse survivor. And the first time that it happened was when I was 12 years old. So childhood sexual abuse is something that when I start talking about, even when I start talking about trauma and abuse and all of those, like those things are really near to my heart because those are things that I've gone through myself. I've had to walk through the healing process myself in my own life. So I know it's possible that healing can be on the other side. And it don't have to take you 20 years like it did me. Like it took me about 15, 20 years. It don't have to take you that long, which is the beauty of going to therapy and hiring coaches, people that will help you be able to expedite your healing process in a shorter amount of time. So childhood sexual abuse. Here's some statistics. Excuse me. Here's some statistics that I found that were staggering. And some of these I knew, like sometimes I'm seeing this on the news. I'm seeing, all these things that's going on. I know people that have gone through some kind of childhood sexual abuse. I myself may be a childhood sexual abuse survivor. So we know these things are going on, but it's something about the stats. So when I'm not the only one, but there are multiple people going through these things around the world that makes you feel validated or makes your experience feel validated. But it also, for those who have not, it makes it real to you that these things are going on and that I need to do my part in taking action and making sure that I am doing what I need to do in my own life so that other people are not becoming victims, or the children are not becoming victims. So here's some stats. 1 in 9 girls and 1 in 53 boys under the age of 18 experience sexual abuse or assault at the hands of adults. Some other statistics that really was staggering for me, that really was, who come to think of, like, according to RAINN, and RAINN is like a really good sexual assault resource, and I have that listed. If you're on Facebook, I have their sexual assault hotline information listed in the comment section. But they said, out of their own stats, the very first thing on their website says this: child sexual abuse is a widespread problem. We know that. We see the childhood trafficking victims. I have to hold my children close when we go out in public, because if I don't, I have this, like, I live with this awareness that somebody could very well come take my children, or come take my precious boys that are just walking along, minding their business, and we're shopping in the store, and they can come take them and sell them into modern day childhood slavery, sexual slavery, modern day. That's an awareness that I live with as a parent. It's a reality that I live with as a parent. So child sexual abuse is a widespread problem. The stats go on to say this: every 9 minutes, guys, every 9 minutes, Child Protective Services substantiates, which means they validate, they find evidence that a claim of sexual abuse is valid. It's on their website. These are the people that deal with this every day. They're collecting CPS research and stats. These every 9 minutes. So that means we started it right at 12. That means they have already had a claim of some child that has been brought in with sexual abuse already since we started. Whew. And here's some other stats. 82% of all victims, that's 80%. Remember, we talked about those stats, some stats in the beginning. That's every 9 minutes. That's 1 in 9 girls. And the other stats I didn't say was 1 in 53 boys under the age of 18. 82%. That's a big number. That's a huge number. And I had to grab my pen because I feel like I need to take some notes myself to come back and talk about some stuff. Every 82% of all victims under the age of 18 are female. That got me, y'all. That got me. Because I began to think, remember what I said, we're not just talking about physical stuff here, we're talking about spiritual. I began to think, what is it about women that who they are, who they were created to be, their identity needs to be altered, or the enemy needs to alter their identity as a child? What is it about women? And we okay, I'm making notes right now because I'm gonna pin that. I'm gonna stick a pin in that because I want to come back and talk about something if I have time. And I may have to talk about this on tomorrow. Females ages 16 to 19 are 4 times more likely than the general population to be victims of rape, attempted rape, or sexual assault. These are the stats. This is not me. These are the stats. When a child has endured sexual abuse, the symptoms don't go away. Yes, the act may only have been one time. We talked about this even with trauma. Yes, it may have been one time, but the effects of the abuse can last a lifetime. I know y'all like, what does it have to do with generational trauma? Stick around, we'll get there. What does this have to do with the community child molester? Stick around, we'll get there. About 4 times more likely to, okay, a child that have gone through or endured sexual abuse are 4 times more likely to develop symptoms of drug abuse. They're 4 times more likely to experience PTSD as adults, and they're about 3 times more likely to experience a major depressive episode as adults. These are some serious stats. And I hope you're getting that this is a serious problem. No, we're concerned about the pandemic, and we should be. We are concerned about the pandemic and our health, and we've lost. I think the death toll for COVID now was at 1 million, or almost at 1 million, or somewhere close to it. The death toll has been unreal. It is. We've lost so many, but we're also losing a lot. And the pandemic has just been for the last 2 years. Childhood sexual abuse has been for many years. We're losing children at the hands of people. We hadn't even got there yet. Let's get there. The next part of the research that they did, their stats, says that perpetrators of child sexual abuse are often related to the victim. You want to know how much? 59% are acquaintances, which means there are people that they know, are know in passing, maybe, a visitor that come over to the house or in the neighborhood. 34% are family members. 7%, only seven are strangers. What are you saying? What are you saying, Dr. Tiffany? What are you saying? That 93% of the time, the child knows their sexual abuse perpetrator. 93% of the time. This is, these stats, if they have not got you by now, if you don't understand how important or how urgent this topic is, if you hadn't just got that by listening to my voice, I hope you have gotten that by listening to these stats. 93% of the time, the child knows who has sexual abused them. But here's the other stats. That even though they know, 93% of the time, they know. Other stats say this. 60% of the time, they don't say a word. Only 60% don't report a word. They never tell what happened to them. They never tell that an uncle touched them, or an aunt touched them, or that a cousin molested them, or that a sibling has been, they never tell. They stay quiet. And that brings me to generational trauma. Because a lot of the times, these victims, these perpetrators, are living in our neighborhoods. They are in our families. They are the people that we go eat dinner with. They are the people that are right next door to us. They are pastors. They are priests. They are teachers. They are people that our children are interacting with on a day-to-day basis. So I know you're like, well, what do I do? Like, what do I do if a lot of times we don't know. Well, let me tell you this little thing about generational trauma. Whew. There's something about when a family has been predisposed, or has this predisposition to trauma, that it almost is like, in order for that pattern to be passed down from generation to generation to generation, then there has to be some level of trauma in the previous generations that's still perpetuating that cycle, right? So that's how you can get families like mine who have multiple generations of girls for my family. But I haven't heard about any boys, but women, the girls in our family that have been sexually abused, violated, by people that are in the family or people that are outside the family. And what happens when you grow up in an environment where that cycle is perpetuated, what people learn and what the messages that are sent is that you don't matter, that your voice doesn't matter, that things should be kept silent. And we hear these things in households, that what goes on in the family stays in the family. This is why um, you may hear families say, don't go over so and so house, don't do that, don't go, and I've heard out of my own mouth adults say, oh, that girl just fast. No, she's not fast. She's not fast. I'm saying this because I'm from the country. I'm from Mississippi, so we say stuff. Fast just means that they are acting more mature than they should be for their age. No, she's not fast. She's not fast. She very well could be having symptoms of trauma because someone is messing with her, is touching her, has come to her inappropriately. They're not fast. That word should just be tossed. Like that concept that children for some reason can entice a grown man. No, they cannot. They cannot. Let's dish that. Let's dish that right now, because that's what we do here. We break stigmas. That's what we do. Children cannot consent. Children cannot consent. In the state of Mississippi, I think the age of consent is 16. And that, the age differences and all that stuff come into play with all of that. But children cannot consent. Children can't give consent. I don't care how they behave, children cannot give consent. If you were a child, or if you have gone through childhood sexual traumas, childhood sexual abuse, it wasn't your fault. Children can't consent. You could not have placed yourself in a position where it just wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault. Children don't even have the mind, like their brains are not even fully developed. It wasn't your fault. Children can't consent. And what happens is that in some of these families, because there's trauma that's been passed down from one idea to the next, children are not being protected. They're not being protected. And beloved, what I had to come to the knowledge of is that my parents, my mother could not protect me because nobody protected her. Nobody protected her. She didn't have nobody to go tell. She had nobody to go tell. It was happening to her, but it was happening to somebody else. And then there's somebody else that everybody knew, and everybody know that the neighborhood know, like we know who these people are, but we're not holding them accountable. We're not protecting the most vulnerable people in our lives, which are our children. They're the most impressionable. They're the most vulnerable. And I'm going to tell you this, because I saw this yesterday. I think it was someone local. I'm from Mississippi. And it was someone local. I don't even want to say the name, but someone local who was arrested for sexual battery of a child. It was their child. I don't know the age of the child. It was under the teenage years. But here's the evidence that has been coming out for this predator, this pedophile, is that he had literally had years. I'm talking 10, 20 years of victims. And there was literally, there was a patterns of the same abuse, the same behavior over and over and over. And no one turned him in. No one, adults knew what was going on. Adults knew. He had whole people, men around him, friends and people that he was hanging out with, girls and women. They all knew, adults that knew, that did not say a word. And I am convinced that that is the problem that we're living with, is a society that is so numb, so in their dealing with their own traumas and trying to not not crack on their own stuff. Let's just be honest about it. That they're so numb to the violence, they're so numb to what's going on, that they don't even recognize when they need to stand up and do something about it. Okay, I was supposed to be talking about some symptoms. Where am I at, y'all, with time? Where am I at with time? Let me look at my clock. I'm already at 12:30. Okay, so we're gonna have to continue this tomorrow. So here are some symptoms of childhood sexual abuse. If you are someone that you know of has, I want to leave with some symptoms, and we'll pick up tomorrow talking about the spiritual aspect of it. Um, let's get to some symptoms. Whew. Actually, we need to get to some signs. Let's get to some signs first. Let's get to some signs, and then we'll talk about some symptoms. So, what are some signs that you begin to look out for of whether or not a child is being sexually abused? Nightmares. Nightmares is a huge one. Bedwetting, grades, grades falling, cruelty to animals, bullying, being bullied, fire setting, running away, self-harm of any kind. And self-harm doesn't have to be cutting. I know sometimes we see that, and I know I've had children who were self-harming. They were cutting, or they would get fire and set their skin on fire, or things like that. Those are self-harming behaviors. But self-harming behaviors can manifest in very different ways. It could be risky sexual behavior. It could be risky life behavior. Self-harm can manifest in very different kinds of ways. But even with bedwetting, sometimes we don't think about that when a child is going through or having some of these symptoms, to even ask them, not did something happen to you? But I hope by me saying these things or sharing these things that we're aware that, okay, when we hear of children that are exhibiting some of these things, that we're not saying, oh, they're just being bad, or oh, they're just acting out. Yeah, they are acting out. You ask them if something has happened to them. Give them space. And I think that's the important thing that we pull out of this, is that no, it is our job to create safe environments. It is our job to call predators out for being predators. It is our jobs to call pedophiles out for being pedophiles and protect our children. It is our job to provide safe avenues where our children are know that they have people that they can come to, people they can talk to, people that's going to check in on them, people that's going to check up on them, people that's going to say, hey, yeah, you acting different. What's going on? People that are not going to be so involved with what they got going on and their children in life, that they're going to say, the teachers, the therapists, the counselors, the doctors, that they're not just going to dismiss these things, but they're going to stop and pay attention. That's all it takes a lot of times, is just stop, pay attention, and just ask. Create a safe place where they feel like they can come to and actually say, hey, this is what's going on. So nightmares, bedwetting, failing grades, cruelty to animals, bullying, being bullied, fire setting, runaway, self-harm of any kind. And for me, one of the behaviors that I started acting out with is with the self-harm, which was the promiscuous behavior. I told you I had to be honest. Like, I just had to be honest. I just had to be honest. I partied a lot. I partied a lot. Like, I think I was sharing with someone one time. I think when I reached the age of 21, I think I had about done everything that most adults wait till they get 21 to do. Oh, I done a lot. And no one thought to ask, hey, what's going on? Even though I got pregnant at the age of 16, got pregnant again at the age of 18, exhibiting all the signs of trauma, all the signs of sexual abuse. I was exhibiting all the signs. And no one thought to say, hey, what's going on? No doctor, no therapist, no counselor, no teacher, no parent, no one, no family friend, cousin, no one. So I hope that we're going to end this, and we'll pick back up tomorrow and talking about some of the symptoms. Talking about Yeah, we'll talk about some of the symptoms, some of the residual effects that we start seeing. We'll talk about some of that, and then that'll lead us in talking about some of the spiritual part of what childhood sexual abuse and abuse does, what childhood sexual abuse specifically, because that's what we're talking about. Because I think the spiritual side definitely needs to be brought out. And there was an assignment. There was an assignment that was trying to be canceled in your life because the devil knew how powerful you would be. And I don't think that is strategic. I made my notes here that the target has been women. I don't think that is strategic. I think that it was very I think it was very targeted, that the goal was the oppression of women. And we see that in some of our society now. I love you guys. I don't Let me check and see if I have any questions. I love you guys so much. Um, we talk about hard topics here. This is what we do. Hard life topics with simple solutions. Join us back here tomorrow. We'll talk more about childhood sexual abuse and generational trauma, what that looks like, and also offer some tips of how to go about navigating the healing process if you were the victim, but also navigating the healing process if you know someone, if your child has is a sexual abuse survivor, or if you are the pedophile. And well, I mean, I think, God loves us all. That's just it. God loves us all. Um, but healing is also available for the pedophile. I love you all. You have a wonderful day. We'll talk more tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Bye. Oh, before you go, remember, if you know someone who is a survivor or is going through or actively going through, report it ASAP. There are some people that are mandated reporters, therapists, counselors, teachers, pastors. Though most of those are mandated reporters. So if you hear about it, whether you know that it's actual real or whether it's a hoax or whatever, you are mandated to report it regardless. So get on your job, report it. If you see these symptoms, if you see or hear, report it. So we'll talk about that tomorrow because that's a part of, but I just didn't want to leave that hanging without some immediate solution. I have a hotline available for those who need the hotline. There's also the suicide prevention line that's also available in the comment section. So go check that out if you know someone who is in need, or even if I'm talking about some of these things and it's kind of bringing up some stuff for you. The crisis helpline is a really, really, really good tool. I use that a lot when people start talking to me and will share different things about what's going on, and they may be in a crisis mode, because sometimes talking about these topics will bring up and stir up old emotions that you may not have processed through. So the crisis helpline is there. Suicide prevention text line is there. The national, let me make sure that I have it right. It's the national sexual assault hotline. So they don't just deal with childhood sexual abuse, they also deal with adult sexual abuse. So that hotline is a new hotline that I've put up. It's 1-800-656-HOPE. People need to know that there is hope, and there is hope. Healing is available. Join us back here tomorrow. Thank you so much for those who have joined on today. Join us back here tomorrow. We'll continue talking about childhood sexual abuse, the community molester, and generational trauma. I love you all. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.